Welcome to Theory in a Nutshell. Today I'm going to talk about melodies, specifically the parallel period. And this is in accordance to the RCM Royal Conservatory Level 5 curriculum. Okay, so what is a parallel period? Well, it's an 8-bar melody or 8-measure melody, I'm just going to use the word bar, made up of 2 4-bar phrases. The first 4 bars end on an unstable degree, the supertonic or leading tone, so it sounds unfinished, like a comma in a sentence. The final bar ends on the tonic, a stable degree, and it sounds final, finished, like the period in a sentence. So here is a well-known melody, Ode to Joy, by Beethoven from his Symphony No. 9. Now, you have to excuse my singing. I'm not a singer, I am a flutist, but I'm going to try. Okay, so, very badly, so sing on top of me, but sing with me in your head. So we go da 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 dum. Something's gonna come after that. It doesn't sound finished. Dum 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 da 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 dum bum bum. And that sounds finished. And if you notice, the differences are only here in the last bar. These are all the same. They're parallel. That's why it's called a parallel period. Okay? Now, let's look at a melody. Here's the 4 parts of just some random melody. The first 4 bars, sorry, of the random melody. Okay, we are in D major. It starts on the tonic note D. Now the starting note will most probably be the tonic, because it's most common that you're going to come across, especially in level 5 and 6. But the first note will have to be part of the tonic triad. Oftentimes you will find a melody starting on the dominant. But for our purposes, we're starting on the tonic. And for most of it, the level 5 and 6, it would be that way. The last note in here, because we're in D major, is an E. That's a supertonic. Supertonic. That one is the most common, I would say, of the unstable note that you want to end on in after the first 4 bars of a parallel period. There are 2 unstable degrees you can use, supertonic or leading tone. But I always tell my students, just get supertonic in your head for 2 reasons. One, if there's 2 different things to remember, I mean, supertonic and water, leading tone and water, you know, it's easier to remember just one, because you won't make a mistake if you do a supertonic. And 2, with the leading tone, if you're in a minor key, you have to remember to raise it. And that's one of the things people forget in their homework or in their exams, is raising that leading tone. So just stick with the supertonic. Okay. Now, each of these bars do outline one of these 3 chords, the tonic, the subdominant, or dominant. That's what we're working on in this level and the next level. Because if you're going to analyze a really complex piece, you'll find it might outline a couple of other different chords. But for our purposes, we're doing a simple parallel period. And each one of these bars, each one of these measures will outline one of these chords. So sometimes they're going to ask you to put the root quality chord or the functional chord symbol on here. Now, I'm not going to get into that a lot here because I have another video on that. But let's just look at the first one. You've got D, F sharp, E, D. Well, you've got a D and an F sharp. It doesn't have to have the A. It's still outlining 1. That would be your functional chord symbol. And your root quality chord symbol would be D. It's a D major triad it's outlining. The mistake that people make on these is they think that the first bar, they go, okay, well, that's a D, that's a D. But if you look at this second bar, you've got D, E, F, G, G. You've got D's and G's, 2 G's there. This is definitely outlined as subdominant. The first note does not tell you what chord it is outlining. Okay, this would be a G major triad it's outlining. And that's really important. Again, I don't want to focus on this a lot, but you will be asked to do that as you go on in the melody work. Okay, so that's our very first one, ending on the supertonic, and they're outlining the different triads. If you notice too, some of the triads have the same note. That's why that mistake is made. A. There are notes in common. So be very careful you look at the whole bar. Now, for the second line or phrase, it's really the phrase, but my students will say, what about the second line? Because it's the way it's written in the book, right? After that unstable degree, here's that supertonic, and it's given to you in level 5, but in level 6 you have to fill out these 2 bars. So that's why I say remember the supertonic, right? Even if it's given to you as a leading tone, that's fine. That's an unstable degree. But when you get to level 6, there's not much difference. That's the main difference, what to do with these 2 bars. And the biggest thing is to remember to fill the bar in with a whole bar's worth of a note on the supertonic. Okay, that's for level 6. Now, the first 2 plus bars are copied exactly. All of this stuff here, boom, 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 is copied exactly. You could change maybe a little bit here, but we're only changing the last 2 notes for our purposes right now. And you're doing that to support the cadences. This has to be a non-final cadence, something like a half cadence or an imperfect cadence, depending what terminology you use. This has to be a final cadence, like an authentic cadence or a perfect cadence, depending again on the terminology you use. The last note must be a tonic for our purposes, and most pieces end on the tonic. So, in keeping with this whole idea of not confusing yourself or making it hard on yourself, make this whole last bar the tonic note, which would be D, right? Just because I see people trying to write a little melody, like not melodies, but little rhythms in here. I'm like, just use a whole note D. Then you're not going to get confused and mixed up. Make the tonic note full note of the bar. Right. The note before the tonic must step to the tonic. And I find my students forget this so often. The notes above and below this note, this D, are parts of the dominant chord. Okay, so you're going 5-1. You want to outline 5-1 here. That is your final cadence. That is your perfect, that is your authentic cadence. Okay? So you must have a note of the 5 chord, and you don't want 5. You don't want the dominant. You want the E or the C. In the dominant chord, you're in D major, so 5 equals A, C sharp, E. So you want this C sharp, it's in the key signature there, or that E. You don't want to use the A. Right? For our purposes, we want to step to that melody. If you remember the Ode to Joy, it stepped to that melody. To that last note. Okay, now, here are 2 possible parallel periods. What we just did on the other page, we changed it to E, D, instead of D, E. Or here, I changed it to C, E. That's the note C sharp, E. That's the note C sharp, D. That's the note going below the D. So this E and this C are both part of the dominant triad. So we're fulfilling our requirement to step to that tonic note so that we have an authentic cadence at the end, perfect cadence at the end. Now, there's another thing my students always miss. And in the questions it says, write a phrase mark over each phrase. Well, that's one of these guys. Boop, and it goes from note to note. Don't be doing this. That's not a phrase mark. It goes from note, well, it doesn't have to be that high. It goes to note, okay? So here from note to note. Maybe a little bit shorter there even, maybe it should have been there. So be careful about that. I think maybe it's easier to go from that one to this one because our hands are in the way. Right? Because when you go like that, your hand's kind of in the way. So make sure it's note to note. Okay? And that's what you need to know about parallel periods. Thank you. Hope this helped.